to tell the story of the Woodhouse, which is one of my favorite early Quaker stories. I told it last year at Bellarmine, I believe. And I have so there are a few people here who heard it. And I sort of hate to repeat myself, but I love this story, so I'm going to tell it again. How many people know the story of the Woodhouse? It's worth hearing many times. So there are a few people who have heard it, but most people have not heard it. The Woodhouse is the name of a boat. It's a house made out of wood that can float on the water. And the story is told by Robert Fowler, who's the shipbuilder. He wasn't one of the Quaker traveling ministers. So he, in his account of this journey, he's more, he tells more personal details than some of the ministers did in their accounts of traveling in the ministry. And it's another one of those wonderful accounts like Mary Pennington's journal. So Robert Fowler is this shipbuilder and ship captain in Yorkshire, which is on the east side of London. And so he sails ships around in the Channel and the Mediterranean, sort of locally. And he's building a ship to do that. And he's a newly convinced Quaker. I believe he'd been convinced by William Dewsbury. And while he's building his ship, he keeps hearing God say something that means there's a reason for this boat. And he's like, oh, God has a reason for this boat. I wonder what it is. And he said scenes came into his mind of New England. But this boat was too small to cross the ocean, so he didn't know what that was about. He pushed it out of his mind. And maybe I should say in the meantime that after the first Quakers went to Boston, Mary Fisher and Mary Austin, and then there was a boat that had Mary Dyer and her companion. And Mary Dyer and her companion didn't even go to share the Quaker message. Mary Dyer was just going home to Rhode Island. But she was put in prison. The Puritans had heard about the Quakers and thought they were blasphemers and heretics and put them in prison right away. Then there was a boat with eight Quakers on it, and they were immediately put in prison and taken on trial. And one of them was this young man trained in the law named Christopher Holder. So they took him to court, and he said, we're English citizens just as you are, and you have no right to put us on trial. You have no laws against Quakers. So they put this boat of Quakers, sent them back to England right away, and started making laws against Quakers. So the laws that they made said any ship owner or ship's captain that brought Quakers to our colony would be fined. So immediately there were no ship captains willing to sail people to Boston or to the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And then they started making stricter laws. So back in London, there's all the 8 people that were sent back. Out of 8, 6 of them are ready to go back. Plus there are 5 more who are feeling led to go to the colonies. And there's no ship captain willing to take them to the colonies. So Robert Fowler sails his little boat to London, and he goes to see Gerard Roberts, who was we would say the clerk of the committee, whose responsibility was to find transportation for people with leadings to take the Quaker message somewhere. So Robert Fowler goes to Gerard Roberts and his committee and says, well, I have this boat and I keep having this sense that God has a purpose for my boat, but I don't know what it is. And so they listened to his story and they said, oh, we know what it is. This boat is going to take these 11 friends over to the colonies. And Robert Fowler says, well, this boat is too small to cross the ocean. And they said, we think God wants this boat for that purpose. And he says, okay, you can have it. You can have it. And so then they tried to find a captain, and no captain was willing, first of all, to sail a ship that small across the ocean, and second of all, to sail it to the colonies because of the laws that were being made against ship captains. So then they said to Robert Fowler, well, you have to be the one to captain this boat. And his first frank response was, no way. I'm not willing to risk my life and to risk, not seeing my wife and children again. And they said, well, we'll send George Fox to talk to you. And in this case, he did. George Fox did go and talk with Robert Fowler, and he said, and Robert Fowler wrote, and by that instrument of God, I was made willing. So he did captain the boat, and there were all these troubles with getting a crew. They sailed with a crew that was too small because the Navy took too many. But they stopped along the coast, and the 11 traveling ministers got off and shared the Quaker message at various places, and they got more crew. And then before they actually left the coast of England, they found 3 great big ships that were going toward Newfoundland. And who'd been there before, and they said, oh, you can sail along with us. That'll help protect you because there are pirates on the sea and Dutch warships. So the seas were kind of dangerous. So now they're in the open seas. The Quakers have a practice of having meaningful worship on the deck. There were only 3 days in the whole journey that were too stormy for them to have meaningful worship on the deck. And after meaningful worship, they would give instructions to the pilot of the ship, who wasn't a Quaker. But apparently he followed the instructions. And then one day in worship, Humphrey Norton says, we're going to run into trouble, but don't worry, God says we'll be okay. And so that day they saw pirate ships on the horizon coming toward them, and the 3 big ships, they immediately sailed off in a different direction, leaving the Woodhouse house alone to face the pirate ship. But the Lord sent a contrary wind in the face of the pirate ship. And so they got through that danger and a number of other dangers. And it was really interesting to see the stories that he tells about sort of their inward condition and how it was reflected in their dreams and in the condition of the seas and the messages they got in meeting for worship. For instance, after 5 weeks, they had only crossed a third of the way, and they were going to run out of food if they continued at that rate. But again, Humphrey Norton was reassured that they would make it, and he was even given a date. And in fact, they did make it on the date that he was given. They made it safely. And so not all of them were actually led to go to Boston. 5 of them were actually led to go to New Netherlands, which was the Dutch colony, and some of them were feeling led to go to the southern colonies. And as it turned out, the ship landed off of Long Island and went immediately to Manhattan, which was good news to the 5 of them who wanted to end up in New Netherlands because they hadn't known how they were going to get there. So they got off the ship. The Dutch were not really happy because the ship wasn't flying the flag of a nation and didn't salute them with guns. And when they came on the ship to inspect it, people didn't take off their hats. They didn't show enough respect. So the captain and Robert Hodgkins were taken to meet Peter Stuyvesant, the governor of the colony, who thought that they were headed to Rhode Island only. And Rhode Island was at that time, Rhode Island had been started by people who'd been banished from Massachusetts. And it was considered by the Puritans to be the latrine of New England. That is, to have all kinds of unorthodox religious beliefs. So Peter Stuyvesant felt like, okay, if they're going to Rhode Island, it's all right, I'll let them go. And so they did. And he didn't know that 5 of them were getting off in New Netherlands. They soon arrested 2 of them, 2 women who were preaching in the streets of Manhattan. 3 of them went out into the colonies to Long Island, where they met some little towns of English settlers who had originally come and settled in New England and found that religious environment too oppressive and then had moved and established little towns on Long Island. So for the next 2 years, the passengers of the Woodhouse were basically the only Quakers in the colonies to spread the message. They did bring the message widely. They started a lot of Quaker meetings. And they also suffered a lot. So they had a lot of reassuring experiences during their ride across the ocean, a sense of God really guiding them. They said it was like a horse being led by the hand. But 5 out of the 12, Robert Fowler, the ship's captain, sailed back right away. He wasn't led to travel with this message. But of the 11 who remained, 5 of them died. 4 of them drowned, just in boats in their travels. It was It was a dangerous country, hard to travel. One of them, it was just a leaky canoe and things like that. One of them was hanged. 2 of them had their ears cut off in Boston. One of them was branded in Connecticut. 2 of them were they were all beaten and put in prison, but 2 of them were beaten so brutally that it's really hard to read the descriptions of it. So this is an example of their living in the cross and the sacrifices that they made in order to bring this message to the colonies. But the effect that it had, as I said, that helping to bring religious freedom to the colonies, because that story that I got growing up in American history was that, the Pilgrim Fathers came for religious freedom, which is true. They came for their own religious freedom, and they didn't grant religious freedom to anyone whose ideas were very different from their own. They banished those people from their colonies, and if they came back, as the Quakers did, they beat them, and if they kept coming back, they hung them, and when they couldn't hang them anymore, they beat them more severely. So each colony was sort of established with one religion that was the state religion. In New Netherlands, it was the Dutch Reformed Church. Some of the colonies were Puritan, Maryland was Catholic, Virginia was the Church of England, but each colony was established on one religion, and the Quaker witness eventually was part of helping to bring religious freedom to the colonies.